Just a brief intro for you. My name is Zane Bloor. I'm the Operations Director at Simplify Change. My background started in the IT industry a long time ago, about 20 years ago, when I helped compete with Microsoft and Netscape to create an Internet Explorer equivalent. Unfortunately, Microsoft won, but that proved a great starting ground for me. I learned a lot about testing and development and so on, and got me spurred into the IT industry. So since then, I've been a developer, team leader, project manager. I'm a speaker on DevOps and operations and remote working. And in South Africa and now in London, I've helped to launch over 50 products. I'm joined by Nicola Graham.
Hello, everyone. Nice to virtually meet you.
Nicola is an internationally recognized change consultant. She's ProSci and Lean Change qualified. She's a CMI member, and she has extensive experience working for the top 4 consulting companies, FTSE 100 companies, and multinational companies too. She is next speaking at the PM Summit in Dublin later this year. So that's a little bit about us. But what are we here to talk about? We're here to talk about a major problem we have. 70% of projects fail when they're rolled out. This is a huge issue for most companies. And the main reason for this is failure to engage people. People are critical to any project that focuses on change, because obviously you want people to know about a project, know what needs to change in their behavior, know what they need to change their skills, they need to learn new things, and they also need to have the ability to put it into practice. And that's quite a big ask, particularly in this period we're going through right now. So right now there's a lot of uncertainty. We've just spent the last 2 months in effectively a crisis, and that's only going to carry on. So right now people are probably getting used to working from home, I expect, largely office workers. That's typically who we're focusing on. So they have a routine at home, but they're also not in a familiar space, if you like. They're still slightly unsettled, but people are going to start moving back into the offices soon, and that's also going to unsettle them further, because they're not going to go back to their standard office setup. They're going to go back to an office that's slightly different to what they're used to. They're not going to be able to talk around the water cooler or have coffee with someone. It's just not going to be the same, and that's going to make people unsettled. And all of that is going to make rolling out projects, IT projects or any project really, and changing processes a lot harder. Some examples I'll give you. Over the last 6 months or so, we've heard about various projects that have been rolled out. One, for example, is a national bank in the UK that decided to roll out a new collaboration platform. So they sent one email to their entire staff, which is hundreds of thousands of people, or roughly about 100,000 people. And that's all they did. They just sent this one email out saying, here you go, you've got access, you can log in and use it. But guess what? They didn't get that buy-in. They didn't have anyone jumping on board and using it, because they didn't explain why they needed to use it. They had no benefit to use it. It didn't say, yeah, why should you change your current working practices to cope? Another example is a South African bank that's now international. It has quite a structured and rigid culture, a lot of red tape in it, and that served it well in the past. However, going forward, over the last few months, it's had to try and rapidly adapt, and really it's failed because its processes, internal processes, just aren't up to scratch. So it's been readily apparent that, for example, the call centers have been failing, getting through has been taking a long time, approving loans, for example, has been a big issue. So that's the problem we're trying to face. And we're going to try and give you some tips on how to do that. So before we move on, Anna, would you like to ask a poll?
Of course. So for our first poll, I will just launch that on your screens now. So the question is, who has used a business change methodology within your organisation? And the options are yes, always, yes, partially, no, for project management only, or no, never considered it. So I'll just let you vote for your answer now. Perfect, let's let the last couple vote. And I'll end that now and share the results. So the majority say no, project management only.
Okay, well that's quite interesting. So obviously project management is quite fundamental to a project. It's very important to have a plan and to roll it out appropriately, but not considering the people elements, not considering the business change and the implications for people in terms of how they need to change is also vital. In our experience, roughly, say a big consultancy, for example, has thousands of IT systems. Smaller companies that we typically work with have dozens to a few hundred, but that still involves a huge amount of change. And generally, in our experience, new projects are being rolled out every 3 to 6 months, and that means that companies are changing fairly constantly. And right now, for example, our experience is change has been sped up. People have been asked to change even quicker. So there may be reduced budgets and so on. However, everyone's been asked to use these new systems that they're really not familiar with. So considering that change element is really, really important. So I will hand over to Nicola to explain how he can help.
Oh, Nicola, you've just muted yourself.
Start. I can teach you about technology. Yeah, so the poll actually alludes to what the challenge that we have faced within Simplified Change is. Now, my background has always been around helping bridge that gap between project teams and businesses or business colleagues. And what happened through my experience is I became increasingly frustrated with the continued parachuting style approach of a change manager coming into a failing project. And the reason the project was failing is because they were put in, the project teams were very much focused on the project management side of it. They were looking at the time, the quality and the cost, and they were just thinking, okay, I'm going to work through this project and then I'm going to hand it to the business because you know what, this is an amazing tool and it's intuitive and it's easy to use. And they would be correct in saying that. But the trouble is they're then handing it over to a business colleague who doesn't know that. They're all of a sudden expected to use yet again, a new product, a new cloud-based system that is going to continue to disrupt their daily roles. And that just increases this frustration and anxiety and resistance to change. So then, okay, we recognize the project isn't quite where we need it to be. Let's get a business change manager in, somebody whose skill set is designed to help support that journey. After a while, it got to a point where I thought there's got to be a different way. There's got to be a simpler way. There's got to be a way that we can bridge this gap so that we can educate project teams to just empathize with what the business is going through and start to think a little bit more actively like a change manager. Obviously, there are a lot of expertise within a change manager's role that you can't expect a project team to do, but just being aware, just having a few initiating conversations and things must help. So that's where we decided to simplify it. So we created our methodology. It's called B, and it literally stands for Build, Excite, and Equip. So essentially, it's around preparing and planning, moving into an excitement, so a way to really start engaging and rallying those troops, and then equipping them with the knowledge that they need to do or to use the products that they're being facilitated with. So if we slip on to the next slide, let's go into that in more detail. So that was great, and the B methodology started to take form, and it really began to make sense. But then actually, how do we then expand that more into a way that we can apply that into a project framework so that a project manager can essentially follow a few steps, and within those steps, they can then ensure that they are taking the users on that journey from the start. So we broke it down, we broke the areas down. So we first of all looked at build, again, preparing and planning, and we structured that into 3 ways. It's about the organization. So what does that community look like? What kind of culture do they have? What kind of language do they use in that organization? And we provided a tool, a product called IoD Insights, which is a group of assessments that a project manager can use and ask their business colleagues to fill out to understand the organization better. We then looked at defining the people. So who are our key stakeholders? How do we engage with colleagues? And then through that, we were able to look at identifying what we consider to be champions and influencers. So again, using IoD Insights, we can look at social network analysis, which enables us to not just look from a hierarchical perspective and say, okay, hierarchically speaking, well, of course, a senior leader is going to be influential on the direct reports. It's more around looking at that response network and how that can drive the right champions and influencers. And then it was to separate it down into projects. So establishing those timelines, naturally you need to work with the technical project team, you need to understand their deliverables and make sure the two are aligned and continue to feed back to one another. But it's also then, okay, so what does success look like? What is good? How do we monitor and measure that people are actually adopting these products on the way? So from that, we use our ABC scorecards. So that enables us to continuously monitor, or a project manager to continuously monitor through insights to understand where somebody is on their journey, how able they are, if they are being aware of the product and if they're competent to do it. So after all, you've done all the building, you essentially create your plans. Now, what I will give credit to is project teams are usually very good at creating training plans, because it's the one thing that in my experience, people tend to think about, okay, how do we train the users? Communication plans are also something people consider within a project, but the error that people make within communications plans is they think, okay, I'll send some emails. I'll send some group-wide comms and, people will get that. But actually, statistically, people don't read emails coming from projects teams, and they will likely skim over an all-company communication. So how do you define, or how do you make or ensure that your emails are being read over everyone else's? You basically lean on your key stakeholders and your champions and influencers, because they're more likely to have their emails read. So once you've done all the preparing and planning, we then move into the excite phase. Now, the excite phase I mentioned is about rallying those troops. So this is what I like to call your campaign, your marketing campaign, and you can relate this very much to everyday situations that you have. For example, if you walk past a building site every day, unbeknown to you, you're actually being campaigned by that building site, because they're going to advertise what they're building before they've even got the got the roof on the bricks. So statistically speaking, it's really important that you start that campaign, and the ways that you can do that is around creating that appetite. So we always like to discuss around developing a brand identity. Now, 45% of brand images can actually attribute to what you're trying to say. And on average, it takes 5 to 7 brand impressions before attention is actually made to that brand. So what we're saying there is, if you create a brand identity for your program or project early enough, and you ensure that all of your materials, all of your communication, anything that you do relating to that project has that branding on it, after 5 to 7 times, people will begin to recognize your specific project, and they're more likely to look for your information over anyone else's if you're continuing that with that brand. So creating that appetite as well as brand identity then moves into things like your digital signage, creating videos. I'm a huge fan of videos, because that's the way I like to learn these days. I don't want to try and read a manual that's going to take me X time. I want to pick up a quick video, and if I want to know more, I will just continue to watch videos as I go in. And it's very much ensuring that you look at that, what's in it for me. So, okay, the business might benefit because of this, but why does the individual want to change? What can you sell to them to make them really want this change? So after you've created that appetite, it's very much about that informing. So again, always work with your key stakeholders, engaging with them along the way. You can host team meetings. That's another great communication way. So you can ask key stakeholders to just put a slide into their presentation to discuss the program or the project, and continue to deliver that communication materials. I have been on several projects where actually I've been communicating quite negative news, and the response from the stakeholders or the business colleagues has been, you know what, thank you for actually just keeping us informed. Yes, you're telling me that the go live's been delayed by 2 months, but you know what, it's really nice to have that information. Some news is better than no news. So always continue that communication. And then think around that market. So how to sell that change, how to educate the champions as to what their roles are and how they can just look out and help colleagues, and how you can really engage those influencers. And if you can do that, then they're going to make this scalable. They're going to make the change scalable for you, but also continue with the support once you're out of the project yourself. So the next part of our methodology moves on to the equip side. So that is very much providing that ability to learn. Training videos, obviously always crucial. Champion-specific training, again, educating those champions as to what their roles are. They're like mini change managers, if you will. And then providing a resource knowledge centre of some sort. So we, for example, use our Be Informed platform, where all of the information about the projects or the products that we roll out are there, and then we can create like learning pathways through that project, so that through that platform, so that people can have a personalised learning style. But it's about ensuring that continuous messaging is driven through that knowledge resource centre, so people have it as a favourite. They want to always refer back to that resource knowledge centre. Education also follows with drop-in sessions, floor walking, FAQs, stuff like that. And I'm pretty sure that most people on this call, being in a project space in their past, would understand that side. We've all looked in a space of a project of those training, the training materials that you need to provide. But what makes this different, and where the crucial part of this is what I like to consider create FOMO. And for those who don't necessarily know the acronym of FOMO, it's create fear of missing out. We are habitual. We are habitual by nature. We want to follow, and we have a herd kind of mentality. We want to follow the cool kids. So let's elevate and highlight those cool kids. So you can do that through interviews, blogs, leading by example, case studies, and very much celebrating those results. And what will happen is, for the people that haven't embraced the change at this stage, even though you've given them that excitement, you've equipped them with all the materials, what will happen is they will naturally just start to follow others, because you're just highlighting that to them. So moving on. So let's give you an example of some of the case studies that we've done in the past. Now, obviously I appreciate today's call is very much moving into how we can also look at change from a virtual perspective. So we have several different case studies that we have done, or worked with different clients. And this particular client that we've worked with here in this example is for a Microsoft 365 global rollout. Now, our client Subsea 7 are a very complex and large company. They are 6,500 staff members spread across over 50 different countries. And amongst those 50 different countries, they also have a lot of remote working. And when I say remote working, I mean people on vessels, on ship vessels, with no internet access. So as you can imagine, this was a very complex project for us. So the way we looked at this is, obviously we applied our methodology to it. So we looked at the build. So what we did in build is we started off with a discovery workshop. So we actually physically went and spoke to 20 or hosted 20 global workshops across the globe. And that was really nice, because at this stage we were able to obviously meet people, and we were able to meet and analyze them. It gave us so much insight as to not only the people, the cultures, but the organization and the way they worked, and that enabled us to hear about their challenges. And so from those challenges, we could ascertain how Microsoft 365 products would benefit them. So for example, 37% of their challenges of communication would be improved just by giving them Yammer, for example. So all of those challenges that we were able to analyze could then feed into our messaging. At this stage, that helped us understand the impact and the needs. So for example, some of the areas, they'd never worked remotely, they'd never worked from home before. And therefore the impact on a collaborative online product such as Microsoft 365 was going to be a lot greater for them than say the UK firm who were actively encouraged to work from home. So understanding those needs and the way that they were going to change for the individual was paramount at this point. We then created our change strategy and engaged with our key stakeholders. So the reason we engaged at this point with our key stakeholders was so that we could get them on board, we could let them understand what was going on, and then from that we could get commitment and buy-in from those key stakeholders. Commitment and buy-in was crucial, because this is a large organization and there's only one of me. And sometimes I wish I could have a clone machine, but I couldn't. So I needed to be able to find the right people in the organization that would help spread the word. And by spreading the word, we were able to perform social network analysis on the company. And that was great for our client, because not only did it give us insight as to who our champions, our influencers should be, it also was something they have been able to use since, so that they can look at any other the projects that they're looking to roll out. They can obviously use the same format. Something else that was really important for this client, because they were spending a lot of money on the Microsoft 365 project as a whole, was to measure their successes. So they were really inspired by our ABC scorecards, so that they could prove the success of the project as we went along. So then when we were looking at Excite, something happened. We all went remote working, because obviously this pandemic we're in. So that was a really interesting change for us within the project, because we were planning a strategy that was based on a lot of face-to-face, because actually the impact of the required for these people needed a lot of face-to-face. And we had to very, very quickly shift that into a virtual way of change management. So the way that we did that, first of all, we looked at our brand, we looked at the program brand identity, and we gave it a complete overhaul. It was outdated, and it needed a lot of work, if I'm honest. So we lifted that up, and we created that as a brand identity. And we, as I said before, ensured that we put the brand identity into all of the materials that we were then advertising. We created What's in it for me videos. So these are very short, sharp videos, just basically giving them a sales pitch, a trailer. If you watch a movie, or you like that trailer to help understand why you want to watch the movie, the same thing applies for What's in it for me videos. We worked heavily with the communication team. They were fantastic, the corporate communication team, because actually we really all needed to work together to get the messaging out. And one of the biggest things that we did very quickly is we launched, very, very early, we launched Yammer. So we recognized with the communications team that we needed a platform to help all the remote workers. So we turned a go live round in a space of a week, I kid you not, a week. And we worked heavily from a change perspective on reinforcing Yammer over the next month. And that significantly helped our ability to move the client into a virtual space. And then as we went along, we continued to release products and drip feed them different Microsoft 365 features. And then we continuously made case studies with those, so that we could just really emphasize and create that FOMO that I discussed. So when we looked at the equip side of it, so this is the provide an ability to learn, this particular client actually have their own LMS, which is fantastic, and they have their own learning and development department, as you can imagine, for an organisation that size. So what we did is, our original change strategy, we were looking at workshops, and we were looking at, we were looking at a roadshow. So across the globe, we were looking at a way that we could invite people face-to-face to have a roadshow and come and learn about the products, and leave with not only knowledge about those products, an ability to use them, but more reinforcement and provisions, so that they knew where they could get support from. What we then did is we had to redesign that into a virtual way of doing that. So we created our game Catch Me If You Can, which is a 2-hour virtual game. So it's a gamification of Microsoft 365 that not only engages the audience, but then walks them through Microsoft Teams and all of the integrative parts of that, or features, so that they can, without even realizing, they're being educated on the product. We also educated the champions. As I said, they're mini change managers, crucial wherever they are. How we did that virtually was through live events. So live events were the best way to do that platform with these champions, because not only did it mean that we could, obviously we could educate them through a virtual meeting, but we could also record it, and we could facilitate that in a nice way. We converted all of our, what was going to be classroom-based training, into live training webinars. And then we continue to create that FOMO. So we improved that social currencies. We highlighted, and we continue to highlight, the good successes. we created lots of case studies for that, and then just reinforced and reinforced and reinforced. And then by providing the support of Be Informed, which enabled those colleagues who had been given some insight to the product but wanted to learn more, their own platform that they could go to and learn in their own time as well, that integrates and links with the LMS.
Thanks, Nick. Another example is Hammerson. Hammerson asked us to help them roll out a communications platform last year. So Hammerson, if you don't know, is a property management company, primarily based in the UK. They have dozens of sites in terms of shopping centres, retail parks in the UK. They stay in the surrounding countries too, but we were focusing on the UK. So we were asked to help roll out this communication platform. So again, we followed the B methodology. And one of the reasons we're showing this example now is to contrast that you can roll out a project using B methodology virtually, like Subsea 7, or it works too, quite easily. It's a really common sense approach for more hybrid examples, for example. So the first thing we did is we looked at the organization structure and needed to understand how they worked and so on from a management point of view, as Nick said previously. We also needed to understand the people. And so we spoke to the steering committee and various people around the country. You can do this with online chats and so on, web chats, for example, now. And one of the key things we discovered was the key audience that we needed to focus on for this example, for this rollout, were people who had been at the company for over 7 years. That was the average age someone had been, average length of time someone had been at the company. So we realized that we really needed to focus on the excite phase. We needed to get them to understand why they need to change from the existing process, which they've been using for years, to this new process, which they'd be unfamiliar with. So we needed to focus on what's in it for them, why they're going to benefit, and the main reason why it was changing, which was obviously necessary and for good business reasons, but we needed to communicate that to people. So we asked all these questions through Be Insights, which Nick's mentioned before. We created the strategy, we created the comms plan. Then we moved on to the excite phase. So we created what's in it for me videos. As I said previously, Hammerson had sites all around the UK. So we had digital signs up. Whenever someone entered an office, there was a sign saying, remember this new application has been rolled out, and here are some of the key messages we identifying. We got the Director of Operations to send out comms through the internet news and and we also created case studies as to the benefits of the system. All of that was really useful to get people on board, and we started this about a month before the actual rollout, before the actual training started. So then when the training commenced, everyone had some familiarity with what the project was about. We had created training materials. We also created a network of champions. So at each local site, we had one person who was a champion. Everyone knew who that champion was, and they were also backed up by the corporate office, who there was a dedicated team. So any questions that arose, and this was a communications platform in case someone's child went missing or there was a terrorist attack, whatever, responses needed to be really quick. So any questions needed to be answered very quickly to make sure that people just didn't give up on the system and go back to the old one. So that support network in terms of champions and support is really crucial. And lastly, we were really lucky to be able to change managers' personal development plans to include a line or a task to say that everyone needed to make sure that their staff were aware and had the ability to use the new system. So that really motivated the whole organization to say, we need to get on board with this, learn about it, and make sure it gets rolled out properly. That was really vital. So the system is in place today, and it might not be in use today because no one can access shopping centers, but they are running it this year, definitely. That's another example. So before we get into the nitty-gritty of how you can use this, the practical steps you can use this in your projects, I'd like to ask you another poll. Anna.
Yeah, so I'll just launch the second one on your screen now. So the question is, who is actively looking at changing either a system or process within the next 6 months? And there's 3 answers. First one is yes, multiple systems. Second one, yes, one system, or the third option, no. So 58% of people say yes, multiple systems, 24% say one system, and only 18% said no.
Thanks, Hannah. Yeah, as I said previously, in our experience, most people are looking at rolling out multiple systems, and they're different. Just by the way, there are other methodologies apart from the B methodology, but the B methodology is common sense and simple, and you don't need to be certified or anything like that. It's just a common sense approach. I would say to the people who said no, just in our experience, people are rolling out systems all the time, and if you're not rolling out a system, why aren't you rolling out a new system? Are you looking at changing your internal processes or optimizing them at all? Does that involve a new system? In our experience, most companies are looking at rolling out new systems. So moving on, build. How do you practically make sure that your project and your audience is ready for build? So what we're trying to do here is get the information. We need to create plans and engage our audience. We do this through organization, people, project, which Nick mentioned before. So the key thing we're doing is gathering information. So we typically do this through interviews, surveys, interviews, looking at existing systems, using those analytics to understand how people are working right now, workshops, focus groups, and so on. And that gives us a good understanding of an organization. Simplify Change use B Insights because it's great because it's got all those built-in assessments, and it lets us focus on stakeholders and do the social network analysis, which is what Nick mentioned before. So it's crucial to identify the champions and influencers. I've actually been subjected to this before. The previous company, subjected is the wrong word, but it's really informative to know how people work on a day-to-day basis. It's like shining a spotlight on how people work, and it's really insightful to see the different connections and how people interact. To go into a little bit more detail in project, it's vital to understand the timelines, obviously, that you need to communicate, the success criteria, training plans, communication plans, and also the technical requirements. If you're rolling out a technical system, you really need to understand the configuration because each product is generally slightly different, and that could have huge consequences for the information you need to share. So some tools you could use for all of these steps is B Insights. You could use Microsoft Teams for obviously face-to-face teams. You can use SurveyMonkey, Typeform for surveys and so on. But the key is to gather the information you need to answer the key questions you're trying to solve and the key messages you're trying to put in place for your audience. So some top tips. Firstly, you need to minimize disruption by using familiar tools. So if your company currently uses SurveyMonkey, you need to carry on using SurveyMonkey because that's, if you roll out a new system, that's an additional change effectively, and that can cause some roadblocks, if you like, to get the information you need. Alternatively, if you're using a new system, make sure it's easy to use. Make sure it's like click a URL and just go straight through to it without anything else. The next point, keep questions concise, is fairly understandable. If you're asking someone a question, make sure there's no ambiguity in it. Because when you come to analyze the information, you don't want to have to ask yourself what question were they actually answering. Don't ask a company of 6,500, for example, to enter a textual description of what their biggest problem is. That's not going to help you at all. You're going to really struggle to dig into that information. Instead, use a rating scale of 1 to 5. And lastly, but really importantly, focus on the internal comms teams. They are vital to your eyes and ears, and they're giving insight into a company. That's almost the first department you should be talking to, internal comms, HR, your technical teams, because they know the company right now and know the company best. So, Nick, over to you.
Excite. Thank you, Zane. So, yeah, Excite is literally rallying the troops. We've mentioned before, it's around creating the appetite. Why do I want this product? Why do I want to be sold this project? It's information, all about information. It is engaging with those corporate divisions. It is creating the right communication channel material through the right channels. It's leaning on those great relationships that you've built with the stakeholders by this time to ensure that they are also helping get your news across. It's just education and selling, sales. So your aim at this stage, if you are looking at any kind of project, is sell your change to all colleagues impacted. Now that's really important, because there is no point you sending out a message to all staff if it's only going to impact a few. This is where your build stage comes in, and you understand that. And then you get double points for creating advocates who sell it for you. So the more people you engage with and sell to, what happens is they become your best advocates. And sometimes, by the way, they can be considered to start with, a negative change player in that area. So it might be somebody that you talk to who kind of goes, no, I am not having that product. I'm not interested, go away. And then if you're able to engage them enough and convert that kind of person into the benefits, the what's in it for them, they will become one of your biggest advocates to the product. So how do we do this? You create awareness through an engaging marketing campaign. The thing that I would certainly ask you to reflect on within your organizations is, how are people doing it currently? What does good look like currently in your organization? And I imagine that most of the projects or programs that are being, or products that are being rolled out in your organization at the moment are probably being done in a very similar way. Why not get a thinking cap on and just create something different? Obviously, you're always going to have to apply to your brand. That's fine. You work with your corporate teams for that, but think outside the box. Make this engaging. Make it something that people want to look at, because that digital signage that they're seeing for your product is so much more fun and engaging than any others. And you do that by the explanation of what's in it for them. And then provide that consistent communication. I've probably harped on it a bit too much, but I can't emphasize enough the communication side of that. That is not just email, that is your digital signage. That is getting the right people to communicate, even if it's over a cup of coffee or a team meeting in the morning. The amount of times I've just been invited to a team stand-up and just given a 5-minute conversation about what's going on, that goes a long way. So just think about that consistent communication, and when you say you're going to do something, keep it consistent and do it. So what kind of tools that you can use? Visual branding, visual identity is crucial. If you can just apply some sort of design to it, even if you have to use, say, Microsoft 365 as your brand, because that's the way your organization works, then that's okay. But just make sure that they have a visual brand to relate to every time. Think about those demo videos. Like I said, you're never going to watch a movie, or seldom watch a movie, if you don't look at the trailer first. Think about that. Why do I want to spend 2 hours of my life watching a film? I'll watch the trailer. Think of it that way. Demo videos are really, really useful. Road shows, if possible. Road shows are really good to really highlight what's going on. And what I would say about those is, try to engage with other programs or projects, and if you can, cluster them together. For example, I have done road shows in the past where I've worked with the local, like the regional IT clients as well, where they've actually had some new things to showcase from an IT perspective. So we've given them a tech bar, come along and play with the new gadgets as well. And all of a sudden, it makes that reason for somebody to want to give up their lunch hour to go to a road show more exciting or interesting for them. Gamification, I've mentioned this one already, but gamification is a really fun way to excite people. So think about how we all interact on our phones. So I'm going to make some assumptions here, but I'm sure that most of us are playing with a game of some sort, and we're learning through that game. So think about ways that maybe you can give somebody a quiz to do, and it's just going to give them a 5-minute zing in their day. Team presentations, like I said, just really those, you provide the materials, and all you're asking your key stakeholders to do is excite their colleagues, and they're going to do that for you if you make it easy for them and intuitive for them to use. And then engage with that social network group. So if you have been able to ascertain who your champions and influencers are, you can then engage with them. And when I say engage with them, this is also about promoting them and elevating them and really inspiring them to want to be part of your project. How you do that, it might be that you give them early access to the tools that you're rolling out. It might be that you have enough project budget to create a champions package. You know, I don't know, they get a free mouse or something. Whatever it is, you know, just try and realize that they're doing this above and beyond their day roles. So what's in it for them, essentially? So what are our top tips for Excite? Our top tips for Excite: utilize corporate events and senior stakeholders. Please don't underestimate how useful a town hall is. Okay, the amount of colleagues that will, if not attend a town hall or a regional department, whatever that kind of grouped event is for them, if they don't attend it, they're more likely to watch the playback of that. So if you can get your message into those corporate events and with the senior stakeholders, they are 10 times more likely to be messaged for you. Add the brand identity. See, I've spoken a lot about that now. 5 to 7 impressions, brand identity across all your materials that you use. Don't ever leave it out, because actually what will happen is when people start going, oh, I actually quite like the way they're doing this, they're naturally, subliminally going to look for your icons. When they see it, they're going to be wanting to engage with you more. Commit early adopters for case studies. So what we mean by that is, I mentioned before, sometimes you get what can be a negative change player, somebody who doesn't want to change. If you either get them or other people that are really enthusiastic about your product, just mention to them in the early times, look, you know, at some point we're going to do some case studies about this, and it'd be really great if I could maybe interview you or ask you to give us some feedback. Would that be okay? And immediately, not only have you committed something to case study, but they're going to want to learn more about the product so they can talk about it more. And then finally, like I said, make it fun. You know, we all come to work. We've all got different things that we're dealing with. Stand out, make it fun, have some fun. You know, make it refreshing, make it new. And then let's move on to Equip. Over to you, Zane.
Thanks, Nick. So Equip. Equip is all about giving people the knowledge they need to use a product, or change, or system. So it's about educating people, giving the change players the knowledge they need to convince people how to change. So it comes down to develop, educate, and create Fomo. Develop is fairly obvious, obviously. It's about training videos, creating PDFs, about giving those people the resources and material that they can use in the way they want to use it. So Nick likes to watch videos. I don't like watching videos. I like reading a PDF, please. And make it easily accessible. Give them one place they can go to access all of this. We do this through Be Informed. Other companies have internal resource knowledge centers and so on. Educate people. So again, this can be done virtually or on site. It's really up to you and your requirements and the company you work for. So you can have virtual drop-in sessions. You can have live events. You can have just allocated time. People can talk to other people just through chat or whatever. There are lots of different ways to do that, but make sure that you cover all the bases so people can get the education they need when they need it. One example of this is for Subsea 7. It's a global company. We did live events at different times of the day, so 8 a.m. in the morning and 5 p.m. at night, so we could cover different regions, America and APME. Lastly, create Fomo. Create interviews, blogs, case studies, and celebrate those results. An example is when something's going really well. So we introduced a new collaboration platform. 2 people in different continents could now communicate. And they were working in the innovation team, and they needed to solve a problem around reviewing some structures. So they decided to use augmented reality, and they got together and came up with a great solution. So that was a great example of the system working. So we created a case study and celebrated it in company newsletter, praising them and so on. That's just one of the ways to get people's attention and realize, hang on, this is a great product which we need to pay attention to. Let's see, Be Informed, live events, so various tools you can use, video making tools, online meetings, floor walking, engagement with management. So let's move on to top tips. I definitely haven't spoken enough about this. You need to ensure the training is suited to the individual. So you need to make sure that people have different roles in an organization. So a cashier, for example, and a director learn in different ways. They have different roles, they have different requirements. So make sure that's focused on the particular roles. You also have personas, and you need to cater for that too. And hopefully, in the build phase, you've got the information you need to identify these different groups of people. So, for example, someone who's a salesperson might be on the road a lot, meeting different clients and so on a laptop. Their needs are going to be different to someone who's working from an office. And you need to make sure you identify those firstly and then cater for the different use cases, different ways of training them. I've mentioned cover all styles of learning. Great way we did that in Subsea 7 was Catch Me If You Can, to give people hands-on experience to different products. That's working really well. And lastly, as Nick mentioned, promote the champions. Make sure that you praise your champions, because when you are gone, the business change manager or the project team, the product will stay in use, the process will still be there, and your champions will still stay as part of the company. They're embedded in the business. They're the people will carry on going back to ask questions of. So it's vital that you praise them, give them what they need to do the best job they can in being advocates for the new change. And that is the equip stage. Thanks for listening. If you have any questions, now's the time to fire away.
Yeah, we do have a couple. I think we might have another few minutes as well if anyone else has any burning questions. So the first one came from Liam, and he says, "Hi both, how do you balance corporate professionalism with personality in the excite phase of a rollout?" And as a follow-up to that, which is, how do you push the boundaries with SLTs who may not understand the power of social interactions to create a buzz, and therefore bringing together the generational differences?
Yep, no worries. No worries. So thank you for that question, Liam. Appreciate that. Yeah, so I understand where you're coming from. It can be a challenge. The first thing I would say, and we mentioned, engage early with your corporate divisions. Whenever I enter a client, my first meetings, or my early meetings, are always with the corporate communication teams. They not only know the organization, they know the brand identities, they know the rules, and they've also got a lot of experience as to what's worked before and what hasn't. And they have very direct links into all of the senior leadership teams. So engage with them and ask their advice, but also seek their approval. Run your ideas through them first. When you have the corporate divisions, and HR will filter into that as well. When you've engaged with them and you've got their buy-in, and it's relating to all of the company's guidelines from a brand identity perspective, you have a stronger case to go to. With senior leadership teams, and sometimes you will get challenges within a senior leadership team, because you will have some people that are willing for the change and others that haven't. And I haven't yet been on a project, by the way, that this hasn't been the case. The way that you can overcome that, once you know that your rules are in place, that you're following your guidelines, is obviously interaction with them. The key stakeholder within the project itself will have to have buy-in. So, for example, if you have five directors, and these are the people that you need to get them all on board with your new and innovative ways. First of all, go to your project stakeholder, so that you talk to them and get them on board. Quite frankly, if you can't get them on board and sell them into the idea, then maybe you need to go back to drawing board, but likelihood is you can. Once you've got them, that's when you need to ask for their help. You need to say, look, this is my idea, this is why we want to do it. These are the benefits, but the benefits are company-based, but they're also driven to the colleague-based. And actually, we can demonstrate that if we can create a campaign that's going to be very, very lively, or very new to this organization, it's screaming what the product is for them. So essentially, it's working behavioral change within those directors. But to do that, you're going to have to get buy-in from the directors. So it's almost a game of chess, as I like to analyze, to put into analogy with you. You need to understand or position your players. In this case, your senior directors that you think you can get in, for the rest to fall in line and agree. It's not always, it will not always be the case. You will always get somebody that will disregard it or dispute it. The only way around that, essentially they become a blocker. The only way around that, once you've got buy-in from everyone else, is to go under them. So if you start engaging with our team and our team are wanting it, then actually the likeliness, they're going to engage with that campaign anyway.
Perfect, thanks, Nicola. So we've got another one from Mike who says, COVID-19 has meant that a change to remote working has been forced through very quickly and often ahead of the company's ability to contemplate fully how this change should be rolled out. In this grey area, we have a myriad of interpretations of how the remote tools should be used. Are there any examples of how these have been overcome?
Yes, you're absolutely right, Mike. It is challenging, and from our consultancy perspective, when the COVID hit and everyone started going into remote, one of our thoughts was, oh, okay, actually that means that everyone they are forced to shift into using collaborative tools like Microsoft Teams, Slack, whatever it is, whatever product that you prefer. But actually, you're absolutely right. The behavioural change isn't there. They then don't utilise the product efficiently. So the way to overcome this is to re-baseline. It's around the consistency. So we do that in our Catch Me If You Can game. It's where we walk through the product based on the design of the organisation. We walk through the product to all people in the same way, in a consistent manner. And the immediate feedback we get from some business colleagues is, oh yeah, but we're using Microsoft Teams. We don't need additional support. We don't need to be educated on it. But actually, I learn new things about these products every single day because there are new features. So if you ensure that your messaging and your marketing campaign around come and learn more about this product, let us now educate you in the right way, is open and honest and transparent about that. Okay, look, we've had to start using a product earlier than we realized. There are new features that we'd like to walk you through, and we would like to apply a consistent approach to ensure that this product is fit for purpose for everyone in the organization. When you word it that way, those people that already think they know the product they'll be more likely to engage with it. To do that, it will take some focus on that particular product. So if your question is more related to, okay, yeah, but now I'm being frustrated because I'm using a product and my colleague is using it different to me and using it different to that person, then somebody in your organization needs to look at the efficiencies of this and how you are not only the efficiencies, but also from a data and security protection perspective as well. So if you're not consistent, if no one's applied a proper approach to using these products, your data is going to be everywhere. And if your data's everywhere, then actually once people go back to work, they are less likely to be using Microsoft Teams because they're not seeing the benefits of co-authoring and share filing and central data areas. So if that's the case for your organization and it's not your area to discuss, I would definitely mention it to somebody that needs to look at rebaselining that for you, because yes, we have shifted because we've all needed to. Everyone's gone, oh my word, here's a fire, how do we put it out? Now let's look at how we prevent it happening again. And by doing that, you can need to apply some consistencies. I mean, we do this all day long in our consultancy. You just need to find somebody who can help you with that.
Perfect, thanks. And I think this is the last one, unless anyone's got any last minute questions. And this comes from Sat, who says, what would you say are the limitations to using surveys, questionnaires, etc. in a change program?
Limitations. Okay, one of the first challenges that you will find is making them mandatory or not. Surveys are optional. And so, for example, the social network analysis survey, I will give you a real life example. We, as in the project team, we asked colleagues to fill the questionnaire out, and I think we got about 15 responses. And that, obviously that's still information. All information is good. However, it wasn't enough for us to really paint that picture. So my next approach was I spoke to the area vice president and I got his buy-in for doing it. And you know what, as soon as I was able to sell the benefits to him as to why this assessment is really good, or this questionnaire is really good for them to understand, he cascaded that down to his entire senior management team, and it just went brink. And then sure enough, those results went through the roof. And then we were able to paint a real picture. How you do that, think about the benefits. Why would that be crucial to a senior manager or a director of some sort? Because they're going to get information about their staff, and that information can be used throughout. And it's not just a technical rollout. That kind of information could be used for everything. If it's not so specific, if it is quite specific to a project itself, you just have to just reinforce that benefits and why you need somebody's help. I think they're the main. That's the main challenge for me with questionnaires. And like Zane said, simple questionnaires. We purposely designed our IoD Insights platform to be really basic. And if I'm honest with you, I personally don't like the look of it. You know, I've said this many times. Don't shoot me, Zane. But you know, for me, it's really, really bland and boring. But it really works because it's simple. No one can get this wrong. No one can not get the question. You know, it's simple words, simple language, yes, no, 1 to 5. Keep it basic for everyone.
Perfect, thank you. So I think that's it from the questions, and I'm sort of looking at time and we're close to 2 o'clock. And also a good place to end, because I've just put a link to our survey in the chat, which is very basic, should only take a couple minutes. And we use the results on this to see how we run our events going forward. So it'd be great if you could take the time to fill that out.
Good to hear. Basic, Anna.
So thank you to everyone for attending today's session, and especially to everyone who asked a question. I'll send a follow-up email as well containing Zane and Nicola's contact details and the material from the presentation. So if you've got any follow-up questions later, feel free to let them know. Yeah, I've put a link to the survey in there. I'll pop it in an email as well in case people have to run off now. So all that remains is for me to thank Zane and Nicola both for your time. And once again, thank you to everyone else for attending the session.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Have a great day.
Bye.